Hi, I'm James Brookes, and welcome to From the Factory Floor, a conversational podcast about all things startup and tech, brought to you by the folks at tsf.tech. So welcome to episode 10 now of From the Factory Floor. For a slight change, we haven't got Eric today. We've got Mr. Remond is back with us. Hi, Guy.
Hello, James. Good to be back. I was on the first episode, the introduction with Ian, and it's nice to be back marking episode 10.
You managed to dodge the bullet since then, and obviously we're joined by Aleksa as ever now.
Hello, I'm becoming a regular here now, am I?
I was going to say we might as well just name the seat after you. So obviously last week we spoke a lot about the engineering process with Aleksa and Eric, and this week we're going sort of almost taking a step back almost and talking all about tech teams. So obviously Aleksa is our resident techie, and Guy's got a little bit of experience, I think, is a mild way of putting it, Guy, in building tech teams.
We built a small tech team in Stockport, didn't we?
Yeah. Stockport, Reddish, it's all the same. This week, like I said, we're talking about tech teams. So I'll start with something relatively topical and sort of just post it out to you guys, really. One of the biggest things that we've dealt with quite recently in software in general is battle between whether it's better to insource a team and recruit and go through that, and we'll cover off the challenges with building a team, and outsourcing a team. I don't know if either of you've had any experience with that. Obviously, I know, Guy, you've also chosen the insourcing route before. What was it that kind of made you think about insourcing rather than potentially outsourcing?
Well, James, when you say outsourcing, you're talking about offshore, are you? Or
yeah,
or that type of thing?
I think for the purpose of this, we'll talk about really offshoring it, going to these sort of software houses in, a lot of them are in the Far East, sort of that sort of thing. Sure.
I mean, I can pick that one up. We have dabbled in offshoring, and there are plenty of good examples of offshoring really working. My personal preference is always to have a team nearby, a team as much as remote is entirely possible and actually preferable in some cases nowadays with the situation we're in at the moment. I'm a strong believer that the hybrid approach of managing a software team is the best one for both, the engineers themselves and for the company. And the reason I say that is that you can't beat social contact, and it's an important human characteristic, and you lose that if you're full-time remote, or you don't get quite the same experience. You can't tap your colleague on the shoulder and ask them a question. Pair programming becomes a little bit more difficult. Everything's that little bit harder. Entirely possible, and in some cases it works perfectly okay, but it is that little bit harder, and you do lose something by purely working remote. That said, remote working nowadays is really important. No one wants to sit for an hour on a commute, on a train or in a car or however they get there. There's good ecological reasons for not asking people to do that as well. So I'm a big fan of people being able to work from home so that they have a better lifestyle. They can be in for sick children. They can be in for a sofa delivery, a parcel delivery, going to the dentist, going to the doctors. There's lots of good reasons. And just, being able to work from home and actually having a couple of hours a day extra to yourself, really important. So I think the hybrid approach really works. You get that team ethic, you get the ability to work that a little bit easier when you're together as a team. I think you learn more as well when you work like that. So being in the office 2-3 days a week can really work for some people, a lot of people, I think, and the remote working allows them to give them that flexibility that they need for lifestyle nowadays.
Yeah. So I think I agree with you there, Guy. I think obviously outsourcing or offshore work or remote work definitely have benefits in certain scenarios and situations. I think what would probably be important to reflect on, I think it's been said many times that the key asset of any company and business side is people. And when we are talking about tech businesses, it is the tech team which is the key asset. And I think the look at the whether the team is in-house or outsourced should be coming from that perspective. Because I think if you look at from the startup perspective, in addition to that, the more successful you are as a company, the more you will bring everything in-house and control it. I think you can see that in many of the examples in the real world, how the big tech companies might have started outsourcing not only their teams, but parts of their platforms, for example, but eventually they would bring them in-house because that's the differentiator. That's what you want to build to make a difference in your target market. So I think long term, I think everybody should be clear that they will be looking to bring everything as much as possible tech related in-house, but obviously there are some benefits from looking outside, maybe in the short term, especially in some of the challenges that startups might encounter in terms of budgeting and skills required to bootstrap a tech product.
Yeah, I totally agree there, Aleksa. The example I gave really was, I guess, for probably a little bit more mature companies, and a startup is a very different scenario, and you've got lots of competing kind of ideals really when you're in a startup. You kind of want people nearby totally bought into the idea, and and being able to listen to some of the more kind of strategic conversations actually that go on, because you're part of such a small team, and again that's harder to do with a remote team. That said, I totally agree with you that quite often when a startup, it has to move quickly, it has a finite amount of money, finite amount of time maybe to get the product to market. So time is of the essence, and time is money, and being able to outsource the initial build to a company who can give you a really solid start, make sure it's architecturally correct, make sure that correct, tech has been chosen, and that will be done, I'm sure, in conjunction with the startup themselves, and they'll be taken along for that kind of ride. So there are really good reasons why you'd want to, mainly for speed, being able to build something quickly and well. Resource, so I think there's really good reasons for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues obviously is especially in relation to startups, is always that cost, and you can also get quotes, and a lot of the times it has been where we've sort of looked at clients who've done that. They get a piece of work, or they get a quote for a lot, potentially a lot cheaper than we'd potentially do the work for, but the quality aspect. And I think the thing that you mentioned there, Guy, and I know we'll mention it in a future episode, I think it's episode 12, is all about the culture that you then build up within your startup and within your company, make sure everyone's on the same page, like Aleksa said. But when it comes to actually building that team and sort of the challenges around that, so you just mentioned the cost aspect. What other challenges, because there's a whole piece around the culture and the tech fit potentially that really make building a tech team not quite as easy as people seem to think it is? Yeah,
so I think it's definitely one of the hardest aspects of bootstrapping a tech startup is getting the right team. I think we mentioned quite a few things there. I mean, ideally what we want is to act quickly. So we want the team that can deliver, build the MVP in the most efficient and fast way, really, so we can get to market really quickly. On the other hand, we are obviously constrained by the budget, and any self-bootstrap startup will know hiring the best and the stars in the technology space is not cheap and can be prohibitively expensive for a startup. I mean, there are some other things which are quite important as well. A lot of startups will focus on that. Oh, can I get the right skills in to build this? But it's something Guy actually mentioned just before. If you're building a tech startup, you're building a tech product, the tech team will be the core of that, and making sure that team actually fits with your company values and vision and be a core part of the business is, in my opinion, maybe even more important. So I think I would probably look to grow the team in a way so you can actually build the relationship with the team in terms of the trust and the long-term vision, even if that means sacrificing some of the, technical skills at the beginning, because those can be picked up. And especially, I think we'll touch on that a bit later, if you have a right model in terms of partnering with the right organization to get that sort of mentoring, that level of upskilling of your team, the more difficult bit is getting the team that will fit culturally with what you want to do. Because what you don't want to do as a startup, and I think that sometimes a few founders do think about that, is you'll get a tech team, you'll put them somewhere in the basement room and just chuck away your software as you go along. And that rarely works. That rarely works for a few reasons. And one of the important ones there is that sort of motivation and collaboration culture that you want. So it's not a one-way relationship with your team. This is what I need built. Let's build it. This is what I want to build. How we can approach it. Is other things that we can do better? Are there some technological decisions that we want to make on the product that will come organically, bottom up, rather than just being imposed on the team from the higher levels? Not sure what you think, Guy, of that.
Yeah, I think, once you've made your decision, you can go down two roads, as from what I've seen. You can go down the road where you hire a company in to begin with and get them to build the product and give you that quick start and a really solid foundation, and then you begin to hire your team, or whether you just hire your team right from the outset and they build the product. And either way, it's really important that the tech team comes in at the right time, particularly if you've got another company that's built it. And preferably while they're building it, it would be great to hire somebody so they can, when the company goes away and they've done their job and you've got this nice, shiny, well built, well architected, well engineered product, then your member of the team, your first member of the team is, they fully understand the domain, they fully understand the engineering and what's gone on, and they can then carry on the iterative development of the products. And, I think when you're looking at a tech team, there's I go on an entrepreneurial program called the Strategic Coach, and one of the big principles there is something called who, not how. And in that perspective, you shouldn't be worrying about how to get a task done. You should be worrying about who can do that task for you, particularly if it's not your kind of unique ability. And I think that same principle kind of transfers into a tech team. When you sit down and you start thinking about who you want, not how you should get something done. It's who that person is. And you'll have a little bit of a wish list, and you should put that together. You should prioritize it, and it'll have things like, are they the right experience? And I think we're going to come on to the junior versus senior discussion shortly. So have they got the right experience? Do they know the technologies that you are either planning to use or you've already used? The company that built it, do they understand those technologies? Or as Aleksa kind of mentioned before, do they have to learn those technologies, which is fine, because a good engineer will learn new technologies as long as they've got the good basics already in place, the basic knowledge already in place. Culturally, James touched on it, and I don't think we're going to go into too much detail about culture in this podcast, because that is something that we're going to cover in a lot more detail in a future podcast. But culturally, do they fit into the company? Are they the right type of person that you want to hire? That's a judgment call. And do they share the vision and the motivation? And Aleksa makes a good point. It's really important that somebody really buys into what you're doing. An engineer really buys into what you're doing, and they really want to be part of the ride, and they want to be part of something special, and they believe in the outcome you're aiming for. They believe in the vision of the organization. So I think there's a few things to kind of check off, and different people will have different opinions on the priorities and what they're looking for first in somebody. And it's a really tough task to find that right person, but they are out there. And, we see it day in, day out at the Startup Factory, where people make really good hires, and those people are with them for the duration of the whole project.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to chip in and sort of just say that I think actually one of the most important things is the culture. And it's why I think we can do a whole episode on the company culture, that culture of openness and giving people the time. I know that one of the sort of core tenets that we have is sort of that almost that 20% R&D time to be able to upskill yourself, not just the developers, but everyone else. Having that ability that people can learn and develop means that people do see the vision and really want to almost go along for the ride. And I think, Aleksa, you mentioned it there and part of almost what you said there as well, Guy, is that the ability to learn, whether they are junior or senior. And obviously a discussion that we've had internally when we've been looking at building our own team is, do you get the senior, sort of that almost senior team in first to help mentor and coach and provide support for the junior guys? Or do you look at getting those junior guys in and almost seeing if they can almost rise to the top almost? And that with that time that they have and the culture you've built to support them.
Yeah, I think, that's typically, it's the first question that you get. Oh, I need to hire someone. Who should I aim for? Should I find someone really skillful and experienced so they can drive things forward, or should I start with sort of a bit of a bottom up, get someone who can really buy into the product and the vision and grow with the product and with the company? And I think, I've seen both approaches in action, and they both can work, but it will depend, I guess, what sort of product is being built and how. I think we did mention in a few previous podcasts and in the book, one of the key things when you want to build a tech startup is to start simple. The simpler you start, the easier it gets to build it and grow it. And in line with that strategy, I think I wouldn't shy of getting a bit less experienced people who can really buy into the vision and grow and learn as they go along. On the other hand, sometimes you are building a startup based on a very specific technical vision. So this is where you might have a semi-technical founder, or you're solving a really technological problem in terms of, maybe some encryption, some advanced engineering practices, in which case you might want to look at someone a bit more experienced because that complexity of the tech is part of the product. So I think it depends on what you are building. But I think my advice would be, if for any founder, really, that it is actually easier to find someone who is like a skills for hire, but I think it's less beneficial in the long term. So I think putting that extra effort and even mentoring and supporting someone who might not that much experience can be much more valuable in the long run. Obviously, if you do that, you might want to have some other additional strategy how to do that upskilling and mentoring. And I think we'll touch that in a second, looking at the tech partnerships or looking at the companies like TSF who do have that expertise and that willingness to mentor and grow tech teams that can actually assist you with that.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, we're kind of going back a little bit to the, are you going to build this thing yourself from scratch, or are you going to hire, a company in to do it? I think if you build it from scratch, you're probably going to need, no matter how simple it is, you're going to need a more experienced person to lead that. Because, that there are some pretty serious decisions to be made up front. And they need to, be thought through and well made. And, experience will you're more likely to get the right decisions made with experience. I think if you do hire a company in, and, Aleksa's just mentioned the startup factory, so if you brought someone like the startup factory in who have, people who've got years of experience, as well as some juniors as well, by the way, because, it's important to have that mix. But, they will make the correct decisions up front, and make sure the build is the product's engineered really well, and the startup's off to the best possible start. And I think at that point, then you probably could look at a more junior person, because really it's ongoing iterative development then at that point. And that might also buy you a little bit of time where you can begin to train and mentor that more junior person. So there's lots of considerations and lots of different ways you can do that. And we see all those kind of different avenues you can go down with the different startups that we engage with, and actually they all work as long as they're well thought through and there is a strategic plan, and that's really important. So again, from a strategic planning point of view, I think you need to think about these things before you engage anybody and decide what the best way is to build your particular product based on your particular circumstances. And I think once you've thought that through, then it's just a case then of kind of rolling it out and finding those right people, which sounds a lot easier than it actually is, but it's entirely doable, and there's some really, really good people out there, both junior and senior.
Yeah, and that strategy is really important. And might just add some of the sort of journeys that some of the tech startups that we worked with have gone by, and how that typically works is obviously you'll have a vision, an idea what you want to build, and then you want to build an MVP, which will take a certain amount of resources and a tech team to build. And then once that is built and launched to the market, then you enter this period of reflection. You basically validate and test product market fit. You check what the feedback is from your users. You evaluate what kind of revenue model will work or not. And what's important for a startup is that during that stage, there isn't too much of a development. So this is where you want to almost hibernate a bit. And then as soon as you confirm or validate the goals, you'll move on with your version 1020 or whatever follows up from the MVP build. And that sort of model works quite well, but it needs a bit of a strategic approach to hiring and how you actually build a team, because there is no point of building a large team of 10 to 15, let's say, software developers to build the MVP quickly. When then for 2 or 3 or 5 months while you're doing this evaluation and validation, you don't have much for them to do. So there'll be a bit of a cost drain on the company. But on the other hand, what you also don't want to do is outsource that initial build. And then when it comes to this validation period, again, you don't have anyone in-house to support the product, make the small tweaks as you go along based on some feedbacks, fix bugs and support it in general. So that's why the model we have come up with did work quite well, where the startup factory will provide a bulk of the tech team, but we will also hire a few of the junior future team members for the startups we are working with. So during the build phase, that they get familiar and upskilled and understand the product and the tech. And then when it comes to validation phase, they can carry on doing that at a much lower cost for the startup and much more efficiently. And then when we move to the third build stage, be it version 20, 30, whatever it is, you already have a semblance of the tech team that can then grow and deliver this in the long run.
I think, I always end up bringing things back to almost that football analogy of, you do have to have those senior players in your team to, who've been there, done that. I know Burnley did it with Joey Barton, whatever people's opinions of him are personally. But you have to then have that academy set up to have people coming through, not quite the Chelsea methodology of just then sell them all off, but that have people there who are going to come through, bring some fresh blood, have some new ideas, different approaches, and really have that vision of they've been with your company, your startup, since, as early as they could be, and had their journey with you, understood the culture and what's expected. And while the senior guys are there to mentor them and make sure, they almost learn from their medals and scars effectively, which I know is a phrase that Ian likes. And I think one thing that we've not really touched on, but, is, I know it's part of tech teams, but it's not, is that a startup isn't just about tech. Obviously, Guy, when sort of back in the Cake Solution days and what you did, obviously it's not just about hiring good tech people, it's about hiring good support people around them.
Absolutely, and just I was about to launch into a football analogy, actually, James, and you beat me to it. But what I would like to say is I'm very grateful for the Chelsea policy of building a great academy and then letting the players go, because we got Kevin De Bruyne on the back of that. So thank you, Chelsea Football Club, for that, and Roman Abramovich. You're absolutely right. Building a tech team is clearly very important. It's a prerequisite to building a great tech company or product. However, you need to have the commercial side, covered as well. We in the startup factory, we meet all sorts of entrepreneurs, some with no experience, some that have been there, done it, and got the T-shirt. But you know what? I think everybody is weak in certain areas, and they don't have the experience, or it's just not their thing. They know what they're good at, and that's what they should focus on. So that, again, going back to the who, not how. So if you know that, I'll give my example, right? I'm not a great lover of spreadsheets, and it's just not my thing. But I know how important that finances and running a really tight financial setup is for any startup. It's vital. So I look for the who that could do that spreadsheet for me and could provide me the management accounts every month and could give me an up-to-date cash flow every week, and who could talk me through some of the figures. And that person also, if you find the right person, can also help you with the strategic thinking around the finance side. And I'm using finance as an example. There's lots of other considerations in a startup, the legal side, the HR side, and so on. And we'll be here for all day if we start to go into all those in detail. So I'll just use finance as the analogy. So finding that who's going to solve the how that you're going to manage the finance in this situation is really important. So yeah, and strategy, the commercial strategy, you really need to think really carefully. You can't, nowadays I just don't believe in 10-year or 5-year plans. I just don't think that they are a thing anymore. And most tech products are a kind of here and now problem you're trying to solve. So maybe you should be looking at a 3-year plan with detail in the first year. And it's that kind of thinking. So having somebody to help you with that, whether it's maybe a non-exec who's been there and done it, got the t-shirt, and that in itself is probably another podcast talking about the benefits of non-exec. Great believer. But anyway, so that's kind of my feeling on it.
Cool. Aleksa, obviously, I know we're just keeping an eye on the time, obviously, like keeping these to 25, 30 minutes. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on sort of support staff around sort of the tech teams as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a few good points that Guy made there, because what you want from your tech team is to be efficient and focused and build the tech product that will fulfill your vision, and enabling them to do so requires a bit of operation around it, and the support and also that commercial aspects, and so basically the products are built, are actually launched and used and generate some revenue. So I think this is all very important in terms of building a company that works as one, if you want. But maybe just for the end, what I would like to add for the tech team specifically for tech startup founders is that the most important thing for me is that you don't treat or consider your tech teams as a kind of skills for hire, which will give you these development skills so you can actually build these software programs that you can run. For the successful business, they need to be part of the company, heart and soul of the company, and be involved in everything from the beginning. So if you follow that and then have a right infrastructure around it in terms of support and any other sort of parts of the company that need to work together, I think that will set you on a good path to success.
Yeah. And Guy, have you got any final thoughts just around the whole subject? If there was like sort of one takeaway that you'd like people to almost take around tech teams and building tech teams?
Yeah, I just think that the key thing is from the outset, you have to have a plan. Now, there's no harm in pivoting if you come across certain issues and situations, and I've seen that plenty of times. But you need to have a plan. You need to be confident with the plan. You need to roll that plan out. But you also need to be realistic enough when things aren't quite working out that you do pivot. It might be a big pivot, it might be just a very minor one, but you pivot and you try and solve that problem, and then you move forward again. You're not going to make the right decisions every time. I wouldn't worry about that. I make bad decisions probably on a daily basis. Don't dwell on those. Realize that you have made a bad decision and do something about it. And, don't keep going down the same path and making the same mistakes.
I think sort of, I'll chip in with mine, and then obviously Alex, ask for your last thoughts. It'd be that, we know that building a tech team is hard, recruitment is hard. There's so many tech companies that when you get the right people in, have the right culture to actually nurture them. Let them, whether they are junior, whether they're senior, once you get that person in, make sure they've got the room to grow and develop, explain to them the culture, what the vision of the company is, and really take them on the journey and show them how much they are valued and how necessary they are to really get the most out of them and really bring them along, which often doesn't happen. And Aleksa?
Yeah, maybe just one small bit and I think I did mention a few things in my last comment. But the key for the successful tech teams in a tech startup is building that trust between the founder and the leadership team and the tech team. Getting that trust right, the tech team does understand the vision completely, and then as a founder, you trust their decisions, and anything that's made around the tech will be critical in the long run. Now, if you're a founder who is not a techie or without much of a tech experience, that might be difficult to get by. So that's where companies like Data Factory or others can help you. So this is where you want someone to bridge that gap initially, both from the mentoring perspective of your tech team, but also supporting you in building that trust, so you can actually end up with a team in the long run that you can run, manage, and build a successful company upon.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that just about brings us to the end. So,
amazing. No freezes, no Wi-Fi dropouts. Brilliant.
No, for once, Zoom and the Wi-Fi has actually held out in spite of everything. So, again, thank you both for your time. Thanks for coming back, Guy. I know it's been a while. I think we might get you on a couple coming forward, especially when it comes to culture and stuff.
I hope you can get me off the bench anytime. I've still got a good half in me.
Good 45 minutes still to come.
Yeah.
So next week, I think we're covering all things process and really not engineering, but into my neck of the woods and project management and agile, and with a small A and a big A, and how it all can go wrong. So I think, Aleksa, we are roping you back in for that one before we give you take you off the last 15 minutes of the game and bring Guy on properly. So thank you very much, chaps, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you, James. Cheers, Aleksa.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Guy. I enjoyed it.
Fellas.
I think that just about wraps things up here. If you have any thoughts or questions on anything we said today, get in touch, whether that be through our Twitter @RealTSF or email at hello@startupfactory.tech, or feel free to drop in for a coffee and a chat. As ever, thanks for listening.